I just feel like it's a very community-driven conference. It also has a lot of quality, and people are just nice. Hi, my name is Sarah, and this is Asian Conf in Dornbirn.
Amazing venue. Austria is beautiful. Meeting all of the people in the community and getting to go and hang out and ski.
Who is actually going to LEC today? Wow, that's around third. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, today I'm here to talk about drawing the line between third-party and custom code. So drawing the line between two or multiple things can be very tough sometimes, right? So it's not only in web development where you gotta make decisions between things. So we basically encounter it everywhere, right? And for this reason, besides different experiences and how we grew up, we're influenced by like a variety of different opinions. So we as working hard developers in the team, we are constantly thinking about on how we write our code, what drawbacks do we have when choosing this over that, etc. So this means we're continuously making many decisions without even noticing it sometimes. So from my side, one of the toughest decisions in my life was like the switch from being an employee working for a company to an independent software engineer. So yeah, that's me. My name is Glenn Reyes. I am an independent developer born and raised in Vienna, Austria. So I speak perfectly German. So and I work for myself. I do React and GraphQL day to day and help running the React Vienna meetups along with Max and Andre, who's also here. And yeah, in case you want to give me a follow on Twitter, just feel free. I'm Glenn Reyes on Twitter without the E's. Now, why do we love building apps? Why are we even gathered here, like learning from all these amazing talks and topics that we have here? So besides hearing about new ideas and topics, we're so interested about like the cool things, right? Which are simply exciting. So especially when we're sliding back after this weekend and get back to work to check for all the updates, it's like, yeah, I mean, in my early years it was kind of tough, but now it's like amazing to see the vibe and movement and all that. So yeah. Also, people love open source. So the space of being able to use software for free and being able to contribute back has been absolutely incredible. It's absolutely amazing to see so many different ideas and libraries that are created from super smart people like you and from all over the world. I love this quote from the Dutch post-impressionist painter Vincent van Gogh, which is, great things are done by a series of small things brought together. It often happens over time that great things are done, taken from ideas that happened from the past. And in open source, we'll find a lot of small things. And often we encounter things like libraries or frameworks that are very small, but yet a little bit different, right? Which leads us back again to which one to use, or what way to go. So we're back at when do we draw the line of like making a decision? Now, let's take a step back and ask, how do we actually decide on things? What is going on step by step during this procedure? For example, when it comes to choosing the right form library in React, first what you probably do is you open the browser, you make your research, and then you find, of course, Formic, Final Form, Redux Form maybe, or you just go with vanilla, but okay, it's a bad example. We have Jared here with Formic, so let's take date. So which date library? So we find Moment, DataFNS, and so on and so forth, and then you wonder, hey, I care about like the smallest library. What's the smallest library? And does one actually support the APIs that I need? How well documented is X over the other ones? Same with ID generators. So what are the differences? Which one fits more into Postgres databases or graphical objects, for example? Or the all-time classic, maybe tabs or spaces? I don't know. Let's see. It's a hard decision, right? Isn't it? So I found to make a really, really good decision is not as easy as you think. And it also really takes some time until you find a way that is reasonable, comfortable to make. Now, I want to share some approaches that I did or even still do when it comes to like checking out a potential library that I'm going to use. And I have to admit, I definitely have to get a little bit better on that, but let's see. So the first is just pick the first if you think it's okay. So try it out. Like if there is something that you don't like, or if it has something that won't work for you, then okay, thanks, bye, next. So you do it a couple of times. It's not so bad, but also maybe after the third or fourth, you're like, oh shit, I hate that. I've still none, and none of them has satisfied all my desires. So the other approach is, I think, what I also sometimes do is, sometimes I carefully look into the library, like I make a thorough and profound research into the library, check the complete API, like who was the author, what was the intention, why this shit of piece exists, what do the other think about that thing, and yeah. And then you suddenly start like stalk and spy half of the day what's going on with Slip, and you do the math, you do the theory, research and everything. You basically get obsessed. You get crazy about the entire construct of a lib. And mostly, I end up being like completely exhausted. So instead of shipping something, all I was able to do was basically yuck shaving and learning too much about it, but forget what I actually wanted to solve in the end, right? Yeah. And also, I often bump into the situation where I think a lot about what I need versus what my actual users need with the product, which is, I think, in most cases, more important, right? And lastly, why not just roll my own thing and do it, right? So, but yeah, man, I run away from time. I'm now, I don't know, 30+ years old, but yeah, I don't want to reinvent the whole thing, right? So rolling something your own means it will cost some time. And not only time, but many, many aspects like time of like maintenance and bug fixes and stuff like that. So our job as developers or engineers is like to find the balance intrinsically. And it doesn't matter whether you are like a developer or an engineer or an architect, or I don't know, banana, an avocado, or a monkey, or a magician. So in any case, we have to do this architectural decision, whether you know it or not, right? So we make decisions that we have learned to make as engineers and developers. And also, we do micro decisions that we don't even notice that we do, because it happens like from alone, like intrinsically. For the ones that we do notice, they can be pretty hard to make. And sometimes, if we spend too little time for that, or they're not well thought out, they can lead to huge and costly problems afterwards also sometimes. Now let's take a look at some serious aspects when it comes to such decisions. For example, complexity. So how complex is the thing? And does it solve actually my problem nicely? And kind of like what does the browser support look like? Other thing is speed, like which one loads faster? Does it meet my loading time budget? API, like how does the API look like? Does it work for the thing that I'm gonna build well? And how about composability and stuff like that? Performance budget in terms of bundle size. How many issues, critical bugs, essential bugs does it have? For dependency, like how does the dependency graph look like? Is it maybe too much, or what do I actually install when I install one thing? Is it gonna install like really one thing, or maybe half of the npm thing? And also, how well is it documented? Like, will it actually save time for me versus will this lead to more problems in the future? In terms of development environment, does it fit it into my environment? Like, is there maybe any plugin ecosystem for my editor? And in terms of license, am I actually allowed, like, am I eligible to use it in my company or organization? Now, let's touch a few interesting aspects, like how can we measure complexity? Here's an interesting example of a jQuery toggle class snippet. So as this one is not a React conference, I can talk about jQuery, which is nice. So, and yeah, if you look closer to this, you might be wondering about the bottom part, like, wait, element class list? Does this part of code ever run? So you check for browser support, and it's actually pretty green, right? Unless you want to support users on IE 6 or 9 or something, then this kind of code could be actually just this, and potentially like this, right? So what I'm trying to say here is basically that don't actually rely on just tree shaking or something, but if you find something that can be reduced very easily, just do that. So try to remove unused code that you find in your code base. Now let's talk about bundle size. How do I efficiently manage the bundle size that fits into my performance budget? So this one is pretty awesome to find out like minified and minified gzip size quickly. So I find it useful sometimes for getting like a little idea of how big a certain library is in contrast to of how much of the API I'm using. And for that, there's also a plugin for VS Code at least, which is pretty sick, that shows you the numbers right next to your imports if you do an import there. And for the ones who use Webpack, I found Webpack Bundle Analyzer pretty great to analyze like your entire dependency tree. It helps like to visualize big libraries, smaller libraries, or duplicate libraries that you find in your code base, right? Also, Webpack Performance is quite useful for fixing like very like low-hanging fruits in terms of bundle sizes. So yeah, basically make use of it. Getting it right and get a bit used to decision making and all will take some time, especially on the web when we see new libraries released every day. And although we see this vibrant movement in web development, it's good to keep in mind that we don't have to use the newest and greatest library that just came out, right? It's fine to just use what works best for your team. Use whatever solves most of your use cases. It is amazing to use and contribute back that comes from the open source community. So that's why we see popular libraries being actively maintained by both dedicated open source devs and devs who are just so passionate about them, especially to use them. And if you use something from out there, it's likely that you might need help or you just get stuck at some point. So basically, if you're stuck, it's likely that your bug has been maybe fixed elsewhere, in opposite of if you would have like written it for yourself. So also, things like questions or any problems that you have that you wonder, they are pretty much answered much quicker than if you would just work on this thing on your own. So getting help for free is just really powerful. And what makes people feel so powerful is people love fixing bugs in other people's code. So you don't always have problems in your own code. You gotta find problems in other people's code, right? So that's why people love solving problems. And if you think about it, if there are no problems, what are we trying to solve then? So yeah, we are actually there to fix them, right? So otherwise, there is no reason why we would be the web development, right? So why would we? So we are there for a living. And yeah, by the way, I don't know how to fix problems, but this is my favorite way to fix, to handle my problems. So when I bump into any bugs, that I find in my code base, I'm just this guy, right? So yeah, let's be serious. How are problems solved in web development? Again, the aspect that I've already touched many times is by making, of course, decisions. And they're simply everywhere. Now again, how to decide what library to use? Like how to find out the library that I intend to use is the thing that I actually want it, or the thing that I actually really need? Or could it be potentially be over-engineered, or has it maybe too much to offer in contrast to what I actually need? So what I mean by this is actually you don't need this if your problem is to open the toy of your kids, just to change the batteries. You probably with this will be just fine. So for example, if your problem is to turn a date, for example, to uppercase weekdays, you don't need moment.js, which is I don't know how many kilobytes big. For doing that, probably copy-paste the part from that you only use, or just use native code to fix that, and you'll be fine. And also, if you're unsure what you're actually using, look into the source code. It gives you a better feeling of what will actually be going on your production code. Also, the node modules folder, it's not a monster, so feel free to look into that. It doesn't bite you, right? Besides that, if you feel that the library is the right thing, but at the same time, it is also not. So you're always invited to file a bug report, right? So let maintainers know about your problems, ideas, or maybe sometimes improvements. So you can always copy parts from there, and you'll be fine. So the best case actually is you open a PR, and then you land it, get a merge PR, and help potentially thousands of other developers in the world by the fix or improvement that you have just contributed. Also, it's likely that when you look at the library that might also solve your problem exists, because it solved the problem of the author, right? So if it doesn't exactly fix your problem, you may want to just make a copy of it, and make it fix exactly your problem. So rather than sending maybe just a 10K line PR, and then it gets ejected in the end, right? So we hate that. Now, should I pick the most popular library? Before we get into this question, what makes a library actually popular? So what is popularity? How do we define that? So probably most commonly we use is GitHub stars as an indicator of popularity in terms of open source libraries. And sometimes it's good to use this and in combination with other things like active maintenance. And then there is also community, like how many people are talking about this special thing. And all sorts of platforms like, I don't know, Twitter maybe mostly, and Stack Overflow. Is there a lot of questions on Stack Overflow, or maybe Spectrum community, or whatever, right? Now, to get back to the question, should I pick the most library? Personally, you can see it, but although it feels quite right, or it's also quite tempting, I wouldn't feel comfortable to give a positive answer there. So maybe sometimes, okay, but not always. But how about just writing my own? And similar here, it really, really depends. For most developers' questions, but one of the most noticeable benefits are when you roll your own. Rolling your own code allows you to tailor the code into your exact needs. So you can write it in the exact way how you need and how you want a piece of code to be written. So it gives you 100% full control over everything, right? And which is kind of both good and bad. So as it's also your responsibility to maintain and keep track of the code, it's just like that. Now, that we've talked about a lot of things, where do we draw the line now? So what is the right decision? Where do we draw the line? I think it's useful to spend less time thinking about decisions. So most of the time, it's absolutely fine to let just our gut feeling drive whatever feels balanced, right? So find the right balance from your view. Your instinctive decision making will actually will improve over time anyway. So everyone has different opinions and experiences. Discuss them and try to find out like a solution that makes us all happy, right? Although I just said we should not think too much about decisions, I still find it's very important to understand the importance of the decision. I also think that any library that we have that has the capability to reduce the risk and negative impact is already a win and definitely worth to take at least like a look at. So in general, we should keep in mind that what we want is we want to try to get the best outcome, but reduce also potential risks. So if the library solves maybe around 80% of your problem, then it's generally a good starting point and worth to consider it, right? So nevertheless, decisions has to be made, whether we want it or not. And not only making decisions, but trying to make good ones. And if good is not enough, at least discuss them. So make sure that decisions are clean and discussed and well thought out. Try to make decisions that feels right. So find out if they give you a positive impact overall. And right doesn't mean always right, right? Sometimes sometimes going to the other direction is smarter than going to the right one. Make sure they are reasonable. So decide on things that can always be argued, like why is it like this and not like that. Also keep in mind that every time we add more code into our library, we increase the spectrum for new bugs. So try to keep track of potential unused and unnecessary and potential bad code. Don't always go for the safest path. So try taking risks, but keep moving forward. Don't lose the vision, the goal that you actually want to do. And don't forget, if you create something, always start simple. Don't go with Redux if you don't know what you're actually building like what you're actually building at first, right? You can just use React. This is, yeah. Don't always use the latest and greatest that worked for you. Keep good practices that worked in the past. So you don't have to use the hyped library because for the sake of it's so new and cool. So use whatever works best for you and your team. For example, high order components or render props or class components or REST APIs. They still won't go anywhere. They will still stay as they are. So feel free to just keep using them. Write the best code possible. Nothing feels worse than writing half-baked code that you might refactor in several years. This is the worst thing that can happen to you. Because one day, old code becomes legacy. And if they are great, we'll enjoy them even more. So there is no right or wrong. It's just every decision that is made effectively can vary at any time, right? So we should be really, really mindful of the fact that we don't really know what requirements will be placed upon our code in the future. So use what works best for you and your team. Do what keeps you working fast and efficient. And also, yeah, of course, most importantly, never stop learning. And especially never stop learning new things. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, you need to have some questions because Simon just arrived now. And he's the next speaker.
Cool, I decided to go.
Or we're just gonna stand here. Glenn, no, we're in this together, boy. No, does anyone have? Yeah.
How much time you spent
Yes, the
roughly 1.5 seconds. I just, I just put it onto this bundle analyzer website to see how big it is. But with the Webpack analyzer, just finding out like what can I do to reduce it could take some time. Maybe I don't know how long. It depends on really the use case, what problem you are solving. But most of the time, I actually don't have these kind of problems like with I don't know how many Lodash instances I have or versions I have. I don't really care about that, but yeah, I mean, it's just nice that if you, in case you run into this problem where you may want to reduce it, then I'm gonna see how much time I want to spend on that. Yeah.
There's also the website bundle phobia that really helps with that. But usually, like, I never check, and like, the problem is you never check in the beginning,
Yeah.
and then you check when like something happens, and
I
you're like,
always
oh
forget
shit, Momon is like 3 megabytes. Who knew?
Yeah, I always forget the website domain. Every time I want to check,
.com?
isn't bundlephobia something.com?
Yeah, I think it's bundlephobia.
Yeah, I always, all the time I forget it, and then I'm just, fuck it, I don't care about it.
I don't care about this. I'll set up Webpack on my own. Fuck
Right.
this. Does anyone else have any other questions? No? That's cool. Dude, you're showing your speaker notes. People can't know we have speaker notes. Our secret will be out. Okay, I think you're free to go, Glenn. I signed up for this shit. Now I have to stand here.
Thank you.